Welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, William Liu. I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. This is why I know the majority of our listeners are on podcasts.
Yeah.
This is why you got to listen live, because when you hear the show live, you get to hear all of Derek's music and the selections, and he's like a DJ back there, okay?
Yeah.
Shout out to producer Derek.
Great vibes.
And today, you know, in fitting fashion, we got the You'll Never Walk Alone, all right? Because of that historic result that took place. All right, let's pan the camera over to Alex. Yeah, that's right. Look at that jersey, man.
Congrats to Liverpool on the win yesterday.
Who scored?
Congrats to Liverpool. Just a demolition of Man United.
Oh, we needed that.
You know,
we needed that.
Man, you thought they said goodbye to 7 and got another 7 back. You know,
like that.
You know,
I like that. Yeah.
What else, man? Should have put 10 on Ten Hag.
I mean, it was looking that way. They had some quality chances.
7-0. Has this ever happened
to United?
Between these
apparently, it happened sometime like pre-World War II or something. They lost 7-0 to Wolverhampton.
Oh, okay.
But United wasn't United back then, you know. So
yeah. So you must have been thrilled.
Oh, I was thrilled. I had a great weekend of watching sports. Not only because the Raptors beat the Wizards, obviously, in overtime. Thrilling game. We'll talk about that.
Low on the list.
But also because I was recovering from like a significant toothache, essentially. Okay, it's weird to describe this, but it's really bothering me.
I got the 15-minute recap.
So I was just chilling on the couch for pretty much all of Sunday.
Yeah,
and I started with 11:30. Watch Liverpool demolish United 7-0. Then I pivoted over to watching Suns Mavs, which was a really good game.
Yeah, great matchup.
Then I kept the TV on for Lakers Warriors. It wasn't the same quality of game, but it was a pretty decent competitive game towards the end anyway. Big win for the Lakers without LeBron. AD was a big problem, and also me watching it partially was because of the fact that I'm trying to look ahead to the Raptors playing the Lakers later this week. So I'm trying to scout the opponent a little bit, and I'm watching the game, and I'm like, damn, Austin Reeves had a really nice game as well. Then I kept the TV on for the game of the night, Knicks versus Celtics.
Yeah, Knicks are back.
Took 2 overtimes. Took Emmanuel quickly having the game of his life. All right. And the Knicks overcoming the Celtics for the 3rd time in the last 3 weeks. And then I was like, all right, this is a lot. Yeah, exactly. No, I was very much rooting for the Knicks to win that game. And then at the very end, I'm like, okay, this has been a lot of basketball. It's been a lot of sports all day. I'll keep Clippers like Grizzlies on in the background. And then I started watching that as well because I'm like, I love basketball and I need to watch my 4th basketball game of the day.
You love basketball.
I watched the Grizzlies explode for 51 points in the 3rd quarter. I was like, this is really impressive. Obviously, no Ja, no Dylan Brooks, no Brandon Clark. You know, all this controversy around the Grizzlies. You're seeing Desmond Bane pull up for 3 in transition. He's just obviously very lethal, very aggressive. Jaren Jackson Jr. driving to his left over and over again. No scouting report involved. You know, to the point where Mark Jackson's like, I don't understand. I mean, like, this is basketball. Like, just you got to force him to his weekend. And then I was like, all right, I'm just going to walk away from this if it continues to be a blowout. But then the Clippers went to their small ball group and finished with like a 24-2 run to flip the game in the end. And Paul George was having an amazing game and Kawhi is Kawhi. And I was like, man, I just really love basketball. I fell asleep very happy having watched 5 professional sporting events yesterday. It was a great Sunday.
Yeah, the quality of basketball has been great since the All-Star break. I feel like every night now we're getting these marquee matchups. And you're starting to see teams kind of come together. I think the Knicks are a really good example. Like we talked a little bit last week with Michael Pina about it, and like 9 in a row, and like they've beaten some really impressive opponents. Like I don't know, Knicks are kind of dangerous now.
I think the Knicks have more signature wins in the last 2 weeks than the Raptors have all season, and that's not me trying to hate on the Raptors, but I'm just trying to say like, do the Raptors have like a buzzer beating game winner like the Knicks had
against them?
Against the Heat,
many of them.
Right? Do they have a double overtime win like that where they're down their best player in Jalen Brunson and they still come through and deliver in TD Garden? Right? They were down double digits 3rd quarter, and the Knicks end up coming back and taking the lead heading to the 4th. And then they hang with them and play that kind of defense and get themselves in that game. I mean, You know, that's a tough team, man. I was really inspired watching the rest of the league yesterday.
No, respects. Like even over the weekend, wasn't the Philly? Was the Philly Milwaukee game this weekend? I
Yep.
can't even keep track.
Yep.
Like that
Yep.
was an
That was also
amazing
great.
game
Mm-hmm.
as well. We saw Giannis yesterday. I know you're tired of the Glizzy Gone commercial at this point.
Yeah, I am.
But we saw Giannis yesterday try to get his own little triple-double at the end there. Did you see that? Throwing the ball towards the basket.
It worked too. Like
It
they
worked?
actually
I haven't
gave,
seen them rescind it.
No. They fully gave him the triple double. So the situation was that the game was over. The Bucks had beaten out the Washington Wizards, who played them pretty tough, right? But you know the Bucks were going to win, and Giannis had the ball ahead of the pack, and he realized that he only had one more rebound to go before they get the triple double.
Yeah.
And in Ricky Davis style, he shot it off the, took an extra shot.
Yeah, but this
and
was
got himself an
the
extra.
he shot it off the opposing basket, right?
You're right. The
Whereas
Ricky
Ricky
Davis
Davis did it. The Ricky Davis one is so funny because not only did he shoot it on his own, and then the Utah Jazz player, I want to say is Deshaun Stevenson, like gives him a two-handed shove after.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And then it pans to Jerry Sloan, who cannot believe that, basketball has come to this.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Giannis is just so lovable that we just kind of let him get away with it. By the way, if people haven't seen Giannis, his appearance on the Daily Show with Hassan Minhaj,
Oh, yes.
was excellent. Watch the full extended 20-minute clip.
Yes,
on
when he
YouTube.
was forced to read some scripts, kind of making fun of other players and stuff. There was the whole interview, too.
Well, there
right?
was the other part of the interview was they got him to try out all sorts of American snacks because that famous tweet from Giannis where he's like, just tried a smoothie for the first time. God bless America or whatever, right?
What did they have him try? Do you remember?
A fruit roll-up.
Okay.
So Hassan Minhaj had him try a fruit roll-up. Had him try like a snow cone, a snow ball or something like that. It's like
okay.
I don't know. I've seen those in Canada, but it's kind of like a soft treat.
Man, we could be creating all this content with him if he just came to Toronto. It'd be so fun.
Yeah, it would be. And then he also had him try a gulab jamun, which is, I don't know if I butchered the pronunciation, but
it's okay.
It's like a South Indian or South Asian treat that's had all over India and Sri Lanka and Pakistan.
All right, I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
What a
and he talked about being an immigrant too, which is you and I's favorite.
Well, him and Hassan Minhaj filmed this really cool WhatsApp commercial.
No,
where they played horse, but instead of playing horse, they used Giannis's like natural name, Antetokounmpo. Like instead of HO, and then
that's a long game.
And then as they were doing it, they were talking about their immigrant experiences and obviously tie into the brand, talking about like how they use WhatsApp to talk to people. So
I mean, look,
people should check that out too.
First of all, I didn't realize WhatsApp actually needed advertising. I just assumed everyone had WhatsApp.
By the way, shouts to any Asian we run into at the arena, specifically Jeremy. Every person always asks, "You got WeChat?"
Yeah, no, he really was like, "What's your WeChat number?" And I was like,
"Did you activate the WeChat?"
No, so WeChat has a very, very strict security policy. So I haven't used it for like 5 years since the last time I went home.
Right.
So I was trying to get back to that account, and they're like, "We need to confirm your security." And so I needed another phone. It was a whole thing, man.
I need you to fly home and do facial recognition.
I mean, probably.
I should stop talking. Yeah.
But yes, anyway, I didn't realize WeChat actually needed, or WhatsApp actually needed advertisement. However, that is absolutely true because I had just set up a WhatsApp group for everybody in my family.
Yes.
Over the weekend, where I had to get my mom, my aunt, all sorts of people to download the app, get their, go through the thing.
Yeah.
And now we have a group chat with the family, which has been, kind of quiet, which is kind of sad for me.
Okay,
but,
And those chats are usually interesting because you got multi-languages going on.
Yeah. So, I told my one of the members of my family, I was just like, can you just leave voice notes instead of writing it out in Chinese? Because my reading of the Chinese is not great. I can translate it.
Yeah.
And I could pick out probably half the words, but it'd be a lot easier if you just send me a voice note. So now our chat is mostly just voice notes.
Yeah, voice notes can be anxiety inducing though when you see the time stamp on them. Sometimes they're like 2 minutes and 24 seconds, man.
Yeah, it's a podcast.
You should drop your whole React pod in the WhatsApp. Rant warning. Which took place on Thursday.
Yeah, man, that was tough.
Rant warning. We ready?
You want to talk about Thursday?
We doing this now?
Yeah, let's talk about Thursday. Because we didn't have a show on Friday.
Had so much fun, just talking about WhatsApp. Yes. So we didn't have a show on Friday.
Yes, we didn't have a show on Friday.
Right. So we didn't get a chance to talk about. We didn't get a chance to talk about the first of 2 games in Washington. And I don't know how else to put it, but the Raptors dropped a huge dud. A no-show in the most important game of the year.
Yeah.
How else can I put that game?
So we had the show on Thursday, and so we were previewing the game, and I was like, well, Raptors played Washington really well last year. It's the first time they're meeting, but I like a lot of their matchups. You know, and the line was Raptors -2, and I was like, let's take the Raptors. Right, because I was like, you know, they really need this game. And then they come out that game, and I realized 2 minutes in, I was like, oh, the Raptors are 0 of 10 from the field. And they're getting good looks, but they're 0 of 10 from the field. There's no good 0 of 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, they're going to have to play from behind this whole game. And, you know, it was just a struggle on that one. And I thought I was just so disappointed in their performance. I mean, like, you absolutely needed that performance. I didn't think Nick Nurse managed rotations well for Jakob Poeltl, who was their best player on the night, to only play like 8 minutes in the first half or something like that.
He
like,
played 10. Yeah, he played 10, and I think he played like 21 of 24 in the second half.
Right. So in the first half, he played 10 of the 24 minutes. I think Precious played as many minutes as Jakob Poeltl did.
Yeah.
And Precious was just horrible on the night. Then the second half, Nick Nurse rectifies that and only sits Jakob for 3 minutes. But still, I felt like that opportunity in that game was lost a lot in the second quarter when they couldn't really maintain momentum. I was really disappointed with their response to Kyle Kuzma. I felt like they weren't prepared to play him, right? A lot of the times they were like sagging off as if he was going to, you know, pass the ball ever. And it's like, you know, Kyle Kuzma's in the game to score. And he made it abundantly clear in the first 2 minutes where he had like 10 points. It was like he was going to take his chances. So I wanted to see a better job on that front. I thought the Raptors are really, really unprepared to play against Washington's zone. I think that's something where in the scouting report or in the walkthrough, you need to emphasize that that's a team that will play zone against you, that they will probably play zone with the second unit. You know, here are some counters that you need to come prepared to that game for. But I thought when Washington went into their zone, the Raptors missed like 4 or 5 straight shots, had some turnovers, and Washington went on a 9-0 run. You need to be prepared for those kind of things. And the culmination of all that, combined with the fact that Fred was shooting poorly, combined with the fact that Fred was really quiet, or Pascal was really quiet.
Well,
and it was like, you just had this like result where it looked like you are in the play-in race with that team, and you came out and you weren't even competitive against them, you know? And so that was just so hugely disappointing. It's probably one of my most disappointing watches of the entire season with the Raptors. And thankfully they were able to look through the film, go through another practice, and do much better on the rematch. And they solved a lot of their problems. But to me, it was just like a more serious team who really wanted to get out of the play-in would win both of those games. And the fact that the Raptors split them against Washington, who was very much a play-in type of team, really tells you that the Raptors are also very much a play-in type of team.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think you pointed this out talking about Thursday's game on your React pod too. It's just, you just look at the compete level on the court. And, you know, you're seeing guys on the Wizards just, you know, fighting for those 50-50 balls, like diving on the floor, just the energy level, right?
Making Alex Wong plays.
Yeah. And
that's why you got a headband on right now.
Yeah. I'm in Hooper mode for the rest of this month. Shouts to Johnson. But that's the other thing for me is like, you hear Nick Nurse go to the podium after the game, and with like, 17 games left in the season now, like still talking about the team needing to compete. Like, you know what I mean though? Like,
man.
And for me, like we've had Oren Weisfeld, like Oren Weisfeld's been asking, I think he's probably doing a story on this. He's been asking a lot of players at the games and the coaches about just the increase in practices this season, right?
That story came out, by the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Great story from Oren Weisfeld.
Good to know that you keep it up with our friends.
Everyone should check it out.
Yeah. What publication though?
Yahoo, Guardian, Complex, Sportsnet. But I think
it was Yahoo.
And it just goes back to the point of like, this has been very different. And you've pointed this out, like in past seasons when they've had like veteran teams, you know, the most extreme example, probably the championship team with Kawhi.
Yep.
Not a lot of practices, like during the season, right?
What's the practice, man? 82 practices.
Yeah.
According to Kawhi.
Whereas you've seen Nick obviously put an emphasis this season, especially with the way the season was slipping away early on, to really get these guys together and try to work through all these things, right?
Yep.
And all the things that you said about how they came out in the first game is why this season has been so frustrating, why it's so hard to just believe that this team can do anything more than what they are right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you've talked about all these things, you've gone through all these extra practices, and where is the execution? Where is the actual results from the processes that you're putting in?
I mean, the pushback I have here is the Raptors are playing a lot better recently.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that game on Thursday was disappointing just because it was not in keeping with the rest of the results that the Raptors had been producing. So I think in that sense, like the Raptors have been getting more out of the extra work that they've been showing. But I do agree with you. Like there is sometimes I watch the game and I hear the interviews and it was even brought up when Will Barton was here and he's like, well, this team's better than the record.
Cap.
And I'm like, this team is the record, man.
That's a teacher's pet move.
This is a small sample size. This is large sample size. Like we're talking about 3/4 of the season has passed. There's 17 games left, right? Like the team is 15th in offense, 15th in defense,
mid,
and they're one game under 500.
Mid, yeah,
and they're 15th in net rating. Like
mid.
The team is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Now they're trending in the right direction, which is good, and I hope to continue to see that fight. But at the same time, like you do know that the Raptors have those kind of letdowns. I was happy that at least the Raptors are able to come back on Saturday and put together a much better performance. I thought the bigger key in that one was just like, okay, how do you find a way to get Gary Trent Jr. involved? Because in the first game, he only had 4 points. He was 2 of 7 from the field, and he was like a minus 26 off the bench, which is just really, really bad. I mean, like, I was even watching a clip that a producer here at Sportsnet, Chris Black, put together about just Gary and his lack of effort on defense on a lot of these sequences, right? And so it wasn't necessarily just he wasn't scoring well, but it felt like his overall energy was low. I thought in the rematch, he was so much better. Obviously, he led the way with 26 points off the bench. He was eventually tabbed to close the game ahead of Jakob Poeltl and ahead of Scotty Barnes at times, even in the fourth quarter and in overtimes. And I thought that was the right decision because Gary was doing such a great job of getting into his own offense, but also playing within the flow of the game. I think that, with Gary coming off the bench now, like you cannot just like give him the ball and just let him cook. That's not the kind of player he is.
Yeah, you were referring to it as like a Lou Williams type offense for him, right?
A lot of times, like you want like a 6-man who can score like that, like Gary does, right? And I think that he has some of those qualities, but I think at the same time, he's not a Lou Williams. He's not a Jamal Crawford. He's not like a Mono Ginobili type where they can really run the whole offense and get great looks and all that kind of stuff. I think for Gary, you need to run some looks for him. Right, whether that's, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like the most complicated actions, but I just feel like you got to give Gary an opportunity where you have maybe a pick and roll on one side of the floor, and then you kick it to the other side, you give it to Gary, and then you come up with a quick screen, and then Gary's able to attack. And when he gets in that mid-range area, he's been really good. Like this season, in that like free throw line extended area, he's about 50% on the mid-range. Right, he's been really, really strong. We saw him make like 4 or 5 of those looks in the second win against Washington, the second game against Washington. And some of those are self-generated in the sense that like he is coming off a screen and he is dribbling to that spot and attacking, but it feels like he's not starting from like a stop place where he gets the ball, he's dribbling it in place, waits for the screen to come and then attacks from there. It feels like there's just a little bit of extra momentum for him to get into his looks. Obviously, he's pretty good on catch and shoots. That's been the strength of his all season. It's been the strength of his pretty much this whole career. And I thought that, at the start of the game, on Saturday, Pascal got him going with a quick 3 in transition where Pascal attacked and then kicked it out. Then Fred got it going with the pick and roll, then kicked it out to Gary at the top for 3. So I feel like they got him into his rhythm. They settled it in early. And the starters were able to do that for them when Gary came in those transition lineups. And then when they turned the ball over to Gary to run it on his own for the second unit, I thought he did a better job with that as well. So, I think they just have to continue to find ways. I mean, yes, they have had a lot of continuity between the 2 seasons. And yes, they've been doing all these practices, but I still think that there are some in-game reps that the Raptors still need to iron out some of the new roles for guys. And Gary coming off the bench in this way is a new role. So hopefully we get to see more of ways where the Raptors can involve him. But yeah, he's a huge piece. And, I think that, Saturday was a huge example of that.
Yeah, I think, with however many games left now and them trying to make a push up this playing standings, like you just want to find that consistency within those roles. And like you mentioned, like the bench contributions, like you look at these 2 games against Washington as an example, it's just, game to game, you really don't know what you're going to get from a lot of guys off the bench still, right? And like I thought Gary obviously was huge, instrumental in that win on Saturday. And I thought Will Barton looked really good too, coming off the bench with the energy plays.
Yeah, and I don't think the Raptors have found like a lot of ways to involve Will Barton right now. He is probably the 3rd option off the bench, I would say. in the sense that there's usually one starter with them, whether that's Scotty, Fred, or Pascal, and then that should be the case. And they're probably the one. If it's Scotty, he's definitely the point guard and dictating play for that second unit. If it's Fred, he's probably going to be the point guard for that unit. If it's Pascal, he's going to be the point guard and the primary scorer for that unit. And then Gary, obviously coming off the bench, most of the plays are being run for him, and that's the right way to go. I think that, you definitely need to continue doing that. Will is like the third option in that sense. So, and he's not really like jacking up any shots, which is good, right? But I still think that there are probably ways to find him more looks and being more involved. But in the meantime, it's like make your own plays, right? And you can make your own plays on defense. And I thought that the defensive effort from Will Barton was really strong. I wasn't expecting it, really. I just didn't think they had a very strong defensive reputation. And whatever, like one good game against Washington in a limited capacity doesn't necessarily mean that, all of a sudden he's like Ron Artest on defense. But at the same time, I liked seeing him compete and find ways to contribute towards the win, and he just didn't fade out into the background. Because I've seen a lot of Raptors point guards, especially off the bench, just completely fade out of the game. There's a lot of games where it's like Malachi plays and you don't even notice him, or like, Delano plays and you don't really notice him, or if you do, you notice him for the wrong reasons. I thought Will just played his role, was really solid. There are probably more ways to find him to be involved, but right now he's like the ninth man in the rotation. So it's not even, yes, there are more opportunities, but then again, he's also the ninth man. But I think he's filling in decently, and hopefully we get to see a little bit more of it when they play Denver tonight.
Yeah, you know what? Which point guard I really noticed was DeLon Wright, and
man,
I think it was Eric Kareen of The Athletic who mentioned, imagine if we used our mid-level on DeLon Wright instead of Mr. Porter.
Do you think
Junior?
Do you think DeLon would have taken the mid-level to come back here? Because I felt like
there's a role here for him, though. I think.
Oh, there's definitely a role
right?
here. Yeah,
Like he would have gotten minutes.
Well, I just feel like it's interesting because the Raptors have kind of approached the backup point guard position in the last like probably 5, 6, 7 years with a DeLon Wright style of player in mind, right? So obviously they drafted DeLon 20th overall. His career got off to a slow start because of the shoulder injuries and stuff like that. But once he settled in, it was like, okay, pretty clear what you can do, right? Pretty crafty, ball handler, has occasional, like, he just pulls out like sneaky moves. Like he'll do a little Rondo fake here or there, or he's a very crafty player. Obviously not a very good shooter. Definitely not a shooter off the bounce, but seems to have improved as a catch and shoot guy. We saw in the game against the Raptors on Saturday, hit 4
he was
threes.
hitting some threes, man. Yeah.
Right, and he was hitting some threes even in the last game before that as well. So there is a skill set there. He defends. He's a clever player. But, after getting rid of him, it was guys like, Lorenzo Brown was kind of like the same style of player. Pat McCaw was kind of the same style of player. Even Delano Banton, to a lesser degree, is the same style of player. So I think they've liked this kind of like long, rangy, low usage point guard. So, yes, I wouldn't have minded for DeLon to come back. At the same time, though, don't you remember, like, I thought DeLon was grumbling about his role and stuff like that, and that's partially why he got dealt in 2019.
Okay, yeah. We don't need another guy grumbling about his role.
Wow,
not on this team. Yeah.
I don't know if it's the culture. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, God. This is our new culture?
No, that was the whole thing, right? It was like we're either going to pick him or Fred to go forward with.
Yeah.
And especially in that season, overall, Fred has outplayed him, but, like, especially in that season, that was absolutely the right pick. Based on what happened in the playoffs.
Yeah, let's talk about Fred so fans can get mad again.
Man.
Huge game from Fred on Saturday.
Yeah.
Great bounce back because he wasn't that good on Thursday either.
No,
and
he wasn't.
The 2 huge corner threes, the defense too.
Yeah.
Again, like I'm just thinking about what the Raptors are going to need for the rest of the season if they want to just like make any push here in the last 15 games. Like,
well,
this is the Fred that they need.
Well, you need Fred to find some consistency.
The consistency.
Like that effort against Washington on Saturday was excellent. He got the first star for me. He was, Washington, it's always funny when you see the other team try to pick on a matchup and then they just don't succeed in that, right? Like they were trying to run the switch so that the line can come screen for Beal and then the switch can come up where Fred comes up to the ball against Bradley. And he did such a great job against Bradley Beal, like bottom up a couple times, a huge play in overtime where the score was tied 107 all. And Fred stripped Bradley Beal on the first attempt. Bradley got the rebound, dribbled it back out, tried to go in a second time, missed it. Fred wins the tip out on the rebound against Kristaps Porzingis, gets the Raptors out in the fast break, and then Pascal attacks. The Wizards double him, and he kicks it out to Fred in the corner, knocks down a 3. It was like, it was a tie game in overtime. And that two-way sequence was the play of the game for me. Fred winning just blocking Beal, then winning the rebound off Kristaps, and there's like literally a 1.5 foot difference between him and Kristaps, and then coming out and hitting the 3. and then he hits another three to really secure it. But that's what we've needed all season. And we've put Fred in a lot of scenarios where he's been open for three. Like if I had to just like imagine a Raptors crunch time play, first off, they're not pretty, but usually what happens is Pascal will have the ball. Other guys will be waiting to crash from the corners, and it'd be Pascal handling at the top, and then Fred comes over, sets a screen, slips out of that screen, goes to the 3-point line. Pascal drives, and then kicks it out to Fred. And typically speaking, defenses stick to Pascal and really close down his drives. And so the kickout pass is open, and then Fred gets a pretty open look with a hard closeout, but with a pretty open look. And he's just missed so many of those chances, right? And we even saw that in the second game against Washington, where he did miss some of those during regulation. But no, it was good to see him get his shots consistently. And look, listen, more than anything else, you can make all these excuses. You can say that like his defense is good or his playmaking is good. I think that those were both very much true. But you need that kind of shot making from him,
especially on this
in crunch
team.
time. Yeah,
and especially on this team.
So
like they need that right now. So
yeah.
Well, they barely escaped a terrible Raptors show episode today, because if they blew that double-digit lead on Saturday,
oh man, the season
lost in OT.
Oh man, well,
rant warning.
Yeah, well, I already did one.
Yeah,
that was probably the angriest React pod of the season.
I thought it was pretty measured, to be honest. Yeah, really? I've seen you yell. Yeah, you weren't yelling. Yeah. I mean, you were disappointed.
I have people who I live with people and I have neighbors. Like I can't just yell.
The two groups that you're most concerned about is the consumers and your neighbors.
I mean,
we got to bring your neighbors on.
I'm a community focused person.
Do you think they've ever heard just like, oh, who's this guy just screaming?
No, it's always 1 in the morning because I'll be like shoveling snow, like out front, and I'll see my neighbors, and I'm just like, oh man, they probably heard, some me cussing about Precious Achua. At 10 p.m. Eastern.
Anyways, the Raptors are now 32-33 on the season.
Can they get to 500? Please.
Well,
it's been over 2 months.
It's going to be tough, with the Denver game tonight, which we'll talk about later. Last time they were at 500 was December 9th after they lost to Orlando and fell to 13-13. So it's been a while. But, yeah, let's take a break, and then we've got Mike Prada from The Athletic on the other line. I'm sure you want to talk to him about Anthony Gill and other things.
I mean, now that you mention it.
The most 90s R&B singer sounding NBA player.
Now that you mention it, I will sneak in a question about Anthony Gill.
Sneak in an Anthony Gill question for me, please.
Yeah, we're going to take that break. I've been your host, Will Lou. That's Alex Wong. You're listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Lou. Continue to be joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. And for the second segment, we're going to chat with Mike Prada of The Athletic, one of the brightest minds on NBA Twitter. What's going on, Mike? How you doing?
Two other bright minds.
Oh, all right. I don't know about Alex.
Three, if you want me to include the.
All right, hold on. We're gonna get Mike back on the line. He was saying nice things about us, Alex. You know, I wasn't anticipating having to turn to you this early in the segment.
Yeah, I was expecting.
I'm happy that you're here.
All right, we shall speak. Yeah. What's up, man?
Once we get Mike back on the line, we'll get some hot takes on Anthony Gill.
Need some time to kill right
delivered.
now? I got you, man. I'm the time killer.
Oh, he's already back?
Oh, never mind.
All right, now,
Okay.
don't pan Alex. Yeah. Mike, how you doing?
I'm good. It panned out as soon as I said you guys were both brilliant minds too. So I wonder what that means.
Yeah, I mean, we know that's not true, but that's why we have you on the show. All right, I want to get your thoughts because obviously you watch the Wizards fairly closely. I'm sure you will catch the Raptors in a decent amount anyway. You cover the whole league, but having seen the Raptors play the Wizards in what was very much a mid-off between two playoff teams, I wanted to hear your thoughts on the Raptors after two games.
I was just about to say that these two teams are really good at being mid, so I love it. I love the mid-off. That's great phrasing. I thought it was like very much two character for both of these teams in these two games. You know, the Wizards have a great plan A and they kick the Raptors' butt in the first game, and Toronto looks really disorganized. And then they go back to the lab, Toronto. They draw up some new defensive coverages. They lock in, and the Wizards suddenly don't know what to do. And the only reason that second game was close is that they had this crazy hot shooting streak for a little while. So, yeah, I think they played pretty evenly, I would say. Two very different teams that are very mid.
Yeah, that really is the takeaway. I have to ask, does Washington only have one play in crunch time? And is it just Bradley Beal going ISO against a mismatch? I mean, like, it's not that uncommon to see teams like mismatch hunting or whatever, but it felt like watching the end of the fourth quarter and in overtime that all the Wizards would ever run is Bradley Beal getting his ball screen from DeLon Wright to get the switch on Fred and then attacking from there. And it felt like, have you been watching this all year is my question.
What's funny about the Bradley Beal crunch time thing? Like, first of all, I think almost every team doesn't have that elaborate stuff that they run in crunch
That's
time.
fair.
I mean, the Raptors don't exactly have. You're talking about ISO to find the switch. I mean, that's Pascal Siakam's game right there.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the Beal thing is so interesting. So it feels like these two games were a microcosm of the Beal dilemma, where all season, when he's kind of just fit in and played within the flow of what they do, they've been a lot better. And when he tries to be super max man, no trade clause, like superstar Bradley Beal, they struggle. So I pulled this stat. I was looking at clean the glass because it really felt like that in these two games, where in the second game he was just forcing it way too much and playing right into the Raptors' hands. In the first game, he really wasn't. The Wizards are 11-4 in Beal's 15 lowest usage games this season, and 4-11 in his 15 highest usage games. So that's some nice symmetry that sort of illustrates the problem, which is he does force it a little bit too much. He has this tendency to just be really stubborn, not make the simple pass. It shows up all game, but it definitely shows up in crunch time. And when he just kind of lets them play through their stuff, they're hard to guard with, especially with the way Porzingis is playing. But when he tries to commandeer things, it generally does not go well for them. So in the first game, he played within the flow. In the second game, he didn't. And that's why they won one and lost the other.
No, it feels like he has more, like a better system around him. Like, I'm watching Washington and I'm like, okay, a lot of the guys, at least they're playing roles that make sense for them. Like, I'm like, Kuzma, like, okay, as a secondary scorer, like, pretty decent. I mean, it probably comes and goes, it happens more in spurts the way I watch him, but he can clearly fill it up a little bit. And then Kristaps has had a really nice resurgent season for them. DeLon's just like a little fan favorite here in Toronto. I mean, we know what he can do.
Love DeLon, right?
Right? Very smart.
One of the funny memes of this season is like it would have been totally different if DeLon Wright didn't get injured in December. Like, their record with DeLon Wright is so much better than when he hasn't played. It's like this super secret important player. Like, if only he hadn't hurt his hamstring for 6 weeks, this team would be a juggernaut.
Right.
But no, I love DeLon Wright too.
Yeah, they're at DeLon right away from maybe being in a top 6 spot. I wouldn't say that, but I mean, at the same time, we saw like the impact that DeLon had. I thought he was awesome on Saturday, especially when he knocks down the threes. And the defense is always good. I think he had 6 steals, which is just absurd.
Yeah.
Especially against a low turnover team like the Raptors. But yeah, like, you know, it feels like Washington has like the makings of it. But yeah, it did feel very much like Bradley can take over a little bit too much. You know, on the Raptors side of things, so we were just talking about how the Raptors are 15th in offensive rating, 15th in defensive rating, 15th in net rating. They're one game under 500. Like, this is like the most mid team
Aren't the
possible.
Wizards like 16th? Aren't the Wizards 16th in both?
Yeah, it makes sense that they split the series then.
I think they're both like right around 15th and 16th.
No, they look perfectly matched up, which is a little bit sad, I suppose, for both franchises. But I think defensively, you know, that's where I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, I guess it's not too far out between 15s and even top 10. But at the same time, like, when you have seen the Raptors play defense and their approach towards it, I think one thing that has definitely caught my ire, or a lot of people get annoyed at, is just like how much pressure the Raptors put on the ball. Like, I thought it was an interesting possession in the game that the Raptors lost to the Wizards on Thursday, where late in the game, 2 minutes left, the Raptors trying to make this comeback. The game is 8 points, and Fred pressures DeLon so hard at the logo. Like, DeLon is standing on the Wizards logo, and that DeLon's able to cross back over, reject the double screen from Beal, and I think Kristaps on the right side, and he's able to just go all the way to the basket for a layup. And I'm thinking, like, very few teams in the league would pressure the ball that hard, that far out against DeLon Wright, no matter what the score is. But the Raptors have this philosophy of putting that much pressure on the ball. I mean, it's more of a general question, but do you like the way the Raptors approach on-ball defense?
I mean, that's their DNA, right?
I guess, yeah.
Been their DNA for a number of years. You know, they're the team that plays all super crazy defense, and I think this year has definitely shown some of those limitations. You know, especially if your default is to be more aggressive. You know, the Wizards in particular, when they were able to clear, they do a great job of putting Beal and Porzingis on one side of the floor and kind of going from there. They're really good at changing up how they kind of arrange that, changing how they set that up. And that's really hard to guard. And they just killed the Raptors with that in the first game, and they killed them a lot. And, you know, when your default, you know, mode of operation, modus operandi is to pressure, you know, it's hard to dial that back. And I think the Raptors have obviously leaned too far into that. The one thing I'll say, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this a lot, is there's pressure when you're playing Project 6ix9ine and everybody is small. And then there's pressure when you've got a 7-footer back there. And it all makes a lot more sense with Jakob Poeltl. What I think is interesting, particularly about the second Wizards game, and I did not watch the Chicago game, but I watched the New Orleans game, watched a number of other ones. It feels like they're starting to, like, Poeltl's mode of operandus is sort of seeping through a little bit more. They're showing more of an ability to be solid in key moments. That bodes well, because, yeah, I mean, they very clearly, I think, lean too far into pressuring, whether it's on ball or whether it's over helping. And this is sort of their style of play. And so much of this year has been the league figuring that out after kind of there being some sticker shock initially when they were a really good defensive team. And now that they have Poeltl, they're able to sort of get back to how they used to play in a little bit more of a sane way, because they have that goalie back there. But, you know, he doesn't play, even when he doesn't play in crunch time, you're seeing elements of it. So that's encouraging. But it's hard to imagine a team that has Nick Nurse ever being like the Wizards are a very conservative drop, low turnover forcing you into the right spots. They don't make adjustments if you're making them, that type of team. So Raptors ever being that.
Yeah, and I guess my preferred thing would just be like, can you find the right style of defense to play for each specific matchup or each specific scenario, right? Like, I think when the Raptors are really good in defensively in 2019 and also 2020, like, their teams were able to, like, toggle between different looks, right? So you'll have, you know, a steady diet of zone. You'll have a steady diet of, you know, pressure defense. They'll play full court press, but also at the same time, they had pretty good standard drop coverage as well. Of course, it helps to have Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka as, you know, like 48 minutes of just strong rim protection. And the Raptors clearly haven't had that in a long time. And Jakob Poeltl was sort of a step back towards in that direction. But No, I just think that, maybe even watching the league overall, it's just like I feel like in the past there was just so much of like um go under some screens, right? And I'm not even talking about like the 90s or even like the early 2000s. I'm even talking about like 2010s. Like there's so many guards you will go under the screen against. You sort of keep your defense in set and you want to prevent that. And it feels like the more I'm watching around the league too, like very, very few teams kind of take that approach. Most teams end up doing something similar to the Raptors, which is pressuring the ball. And I think maybe across the league, I'm just watching this, just like on ball defense is just really, really hard for everybody involved, partially because of how much skill has increased, but also because you're also always pressuring the ball.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody can shoot, it's everything that all of what you're saying is everything I wrote about in the book Spaced Out. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just really you have all this room to cover, and how do you cover two zones of the floor when they're so far apart from each other? I know to your point though, given how offense has performed this year, this scoring explosion, it does make you wonder if like maybe we've gone a little too far
Yeah.
in dialing up the aggression. It does. You're gonna have at a certain point, like I think it's interesting. I'm watching a lot of the Bucks recently, and the Bucks have always, to me, over the past couple of years, have been kind of the actors and how they defend, where they kind of accomplish the same goal by different means.
Mhm.
Looking back a couple of years ago, you watch them, and they're very much a team that just accepts what they're willing to give up.
Yep.
You know, they have great. I mean, to have Drew Holiday and Brooke Lopez on the opposite end of a pick and roll, I mean, it's right up there with Kyle Lowry and Marc Gasol on like I don't want to go against that duo,
Mhm.
but they are very willing to give up what they give up. They give up certain dribble up threes. They'll obviously give up plenty of shots in the mid range. They'll give up, you know, certain spot up shots, and they seem very committed to that, even if you're hot. And they have ways of sort of psychologically making you think that they sort of like gift you these shots and sort of make you psychologically think. To me, that's sort of where the league has to go. Is
Mhm.
that they're just you have to have an acceptance that you're just going to give up some stuff. And the Raptors' philosophy is that they don't want to give up anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, the other thing too is that you cite Gasol and Ibaka. I mean, they no longer have Lowry anymore. He's an incredibly intelligent defender. When you lose a lot of your solid guys, and all you're left with are sort of your athletic. You have Fred as a solid guy, but other than that, it's a lot of your best athletes and sort of the more disruptive defenders rather than the most solid. You do lose a lot.
Mhm.
You can't disrupt something if you don't have the solid base. So I think that's something that's happened to the Raptors over the last couple of years. And last year, I think they compensated by playing a very idiosyncratic style. And this year, the league has caught up to it a little bit. So that's why Jakob Pertl was such an important addition. Although, there are challenges in the offensive end now with Jakob Pertl's addition. I don't know what you guys thought about this, but those are two of the least uh, loud Pascal Siakam games I can remember,
Oh,
the
yeah.
two Wizards games. I felt like he got lost because there was no space for him to do what he did. And I don't think it's like it seems like he had done pretty well since Pirtle had gotten there, but
Mhm.
it was a little glaring to me watching just you open up the Fred Pirtle pick and roll and suddenly, Pascal's now the guy lost. I thought that was kind of telling.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, there are definitely going to be some long-term concerns in terms of playing Yak, Pascal, and Scotty more on the offensive end. I think defensively, you have so many pieces there, you can make it work. But offensively, yeah, it does feel like kind of like two of the three can operate at once. For Scotty, he's
Yeah.
able to at least run backup point, run point for the second unit, and he's decently pretty good at that, especially getting guys involved. So there's always kind of going to be that role. But for Pascal, I think two things. The Wizards did a really great job of playing zone against him, and I don't think he's done very well against the zone. And then I think too, it's just like with Jakob there, and Washington is very unique in the sense that they play in the starting lineup with both Gafford and Kristaps, so there's going to be a
Mhm.
lot of extra size. It just felt like I didn't think Pascal felt very comfortable attacking either of those two guys in isolation, and he's very much a guy who wants to like get to a matchup and attack and shoot over the top, or drive in the middle of the floor,
Right.
see the second defender, and then just instantly kick out. And it just didn't really feel
He
like he
needs
had.
room.
Yeah, but exactly, he needs room to do that. So I don't know.
Needs room. It's not there anymore. I
Yeah,
mean, but of course the trade-off in that second game is that Fred and Gary Trent were so much better because they have better
sure.
screens to step
Yeah.
into their shots. So I mean it's just interesting that you open one door and another one closes with this team. I think I said at the beginning of the year that the fundamental challenge of how do you fit Pascal, OG, and Scotty together in one lineup that works for on both sides of the floor
Mm.
is very challenging because they all want the same spots.
Well, I mean, Mike, that's part of the reason why they're mid. But all right, we gotta let you go because we gotta fulfill some other obligations. But did you have any Anthony Gill thoughts before you went, or no?
No, I anticipated that question, and I in advance said I got nothing.
Got
to
you.
tell you. Yeah. No,
All
I
right.
got nothing.
All right.
He shouldn't be playing, but he plays because they're injuries.
All right, Anthony Gill, he shouldn't be playing. Put that on a quote graphic for you,
All right.
Prada.
Thank you.
There you go.
Appreciate
who's
you.
the Raptors equivalent of Anthony Gill? It's probably like
It was
Malachi Flynn?
It was Wancho
No.
before he got
Wancho.
cut. Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say
Wancho.
Wancho Hernan Gomez.
Yeah.
Boy, the Will Barton 9-10 Bowl is going to be really.
Oh
exciting.
yeah, we didn't even ask you about.
Can't wait.
We didn't even ask you about Will Barton. I mean, yeah, I guess he just didn't work out in Washington. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think he needs the ball in his hands a lot, and I mean they have 700 swingmen. It's the same reason Rui Hachimura isn't on the team anymore. They need to get rid of some of those guys to give Corey Kispert and Avdia and even Kuzma and now Kendrick Nunn, who's played really well for them. Weirdly, more room to breathe. So that's where you get that.
All right, fair enough. All right, thank you, Mike. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Making room for Kendrick Nunn. I don't think anyone's ever said that before.
Yeah. By the way, those Cherry Blossom Wizards jerseys, I feel like that's the best jersey I've seen since those Miami Heat Vice jerseys.
Yeah,
That's a beautiful jersey.
They are really nice. I agree.
But
is this another on-air begging?
No begging.
segment?
The Crocs came in today, so
Oh, okay,
I'm good,
nice.
man. Shout out to Mr. Crocs.
You didn't wear those with your headband and Liverpool away kit? Actually, I think this is the third kit too. Actually.
Oh man, yeah. Check out Mike Prada's book, Spaced Out.
Yeah.
How the NBA's 3-point revolution changed everything you thought you knew about basketball. What else?
What do you have here in the notes?
Well, the May 13th WNBA preseason game at Scotiabank Arena between the Chicago Sky and Minnesota Lynx, the presale tickets went on sale today.
Yeah. They were like gone in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it appears they were gone within like the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Believe there's going to be more tickets that are going to be made available to the general public this Wednesday. So for anybody interested, make sure you go to WNBACanadaGame.com. It's going to be exciting.
No, it's going to be amazing.
It's going to be a sold-out arena.
We're going to have to get media seats.
We will get media seats.
Yeah.
So then we can do a full recap on the show and talk about it and all of that.
No, I'm excited, man.
Yeah, no, I think that would be great.
What were you up to yesterday? We got a minute here to talk about the reason why you're wearing a headband right now.
Played in the Raptors Research 3-on-3 tournament this weekend. Shouts to University of Toronto team that I joined, led by Professor Joseph Wong, who is in charge of this really cool YouTube series called Joe's Basketball Diaries. Talking
little
about
father-son pick and roll combo right there.
Yeah, well, I was actually asked by a Raptors Show fan if that was my dad.
I mean, his name's also Wong. He's older than you.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Anyways, it was cool. Like we were able to raise, I think, or I want to say like over $6,600 towards cancer research. We were one of the top fundraising groups there. And honestly, a lot of the initiatives was brought on by Professor Joseph Wong. But, shouts to the squad, Joseph, Lisa, Oliver, Hannah Flores, who was on the show last season, T, Coach, Muddy, and Alir, who carried us.
You got nicknames now?
And I was the Chinese Rodman. We went 4-0. But because of the point differential system, we didn't make it to the finals that's taking place tomorrow at the OVO Athletic Center.
Yeah, it's too bad. Shout out to Vlad, though.
Shout out to Vlad, Vlad, from Raptors Republic 3-on-3 fame.
Yeah,
and he wanted to pass along the message that he was actually with a real squad yesterday.
Oh, well, the way you described it was they had 5 Vlads. and Vlad is 6'7" and could dunk the ball and shoot
pretty
it.
Sure, some of the Raptors research is going towards cloning. There was 5 Vlads there yesterday.
No, I got a scouting report from your pops, Joe Wong.
Yeah.
All right. I said, I need this full scouting report. He said, dude can rebound, like out of nowhere. Suddenly there's Alex. I asked, has he scored with his right yet? And he says, no. Drives left a lot. Rebounding fiend, though. So there you go, man.
I'm addicted to the boards,
You're
man.
Chinese Rodman. You're actually Chinese Rodman.
What can I say?
Dye your hair again.
Addicted to the boards. Nah, man. And now it's time for Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. It's a whole new game. Toronto Raptors continue the road trip tonight in Denver against the Nuggets. Injury report is pretty clean on Toronto's side, unless you care about Otto Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. is questionable with a non-COVID illness. Otherwise, that's about it. The Denver Nuggets are -6.5 at home against the Toronto Raptors. This is going to be a tough one.
The Denver Nuggets are 29-4 at home this season.
Well, and the Raptors are 12-20 on the road. And I was actually going through all their road games and trying to pick out how many quality road wins that they've had this season.
Yeah.
And may I present to you 5 that I was able to pull out.
Wow, this guy did research. Let's hear it.
Miami, early in the season, the second half of a back-to-back, a 98-90 win.
I heard that, yeah. That was after the fight and the ejection, Koloko and Martin. Yeah,
that was a solid win. Win against a Miami team that's also mid.
Yeah.
The New York Knicks, the toast of the Eastern Conference right now.
Right. Unlike the Celtics, the Raptors can actually beat the Knicks in overtime.
the Pascal 52-point game. And also another time when they won in overtime. That was the one.
Two of our best wins this season are against the Knicks, and that's not even a joke. Yeah.
Yep. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers at Cleveland. This was around Christmas time.
Yeah, definitely not the rematch. The rematch we got.
Oh yeah, rematch was tough. So that's 4 quality road wins for the Raptors, then the Sacramento Kings to open that.
No, that was a quality one. Come on, don't slander that one.
No, so
that's my favorite game of the season.
Raptors have 5 quality road wins by my count.
Yeah.
If you want to count Saturday's win over Washington in overtime, sure. If you want to count the win over Memphis, I wouldn't count that because they were missing a bunch
Memphis
of their
only
starters.
has 5 losses at home, so
all right.
You know what?
But all I'm saying is huge discrepancy. We know where Denver is in the Western Conference, 6.5-point favorites. Which way are you leaning?
That's not enough for Denver, man. I'm thinking,
I think the altitude alone should be 12 points, to be honest, and then the talent gap should be 8.
Okay, so the Raptors actually did go and beat the Nuggets last year in March, and Scotty had a great game, and it was one of the games of the season for the Raptors in their turnaround.
Think about the old days.
Exactly.
The old days.
I don't feel as confident about it, but they do have Jakob Poeltl to handle the center matchup. They've actually done pretty well with either Scotty or OG guarding Jokic, but at the same time, I think you have a different matchup to play with today. So we'll see. But Denver is very, very hard to beat at home. So I'm going to have to go with Denver on this
Denver
one.
minus 6.5.
Yeah.
Raptors, please surprise all of us tonight.
Yeah. Anyway, that was Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. It's a whole new game, and that does it for us today. I've been your host, Will Liu, and you've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Thanks again to Mike Prada, producer and co-host Alex Wong, our board producer Derek Bandero, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping with the YouTube stream. See you tomorrow.